Hey everyone, welcome to Neural Notes, show where AI comes alive. Smash that subscribe button and ride the innovation wave.
Have you ever just stopped and really thought about, well, thinking? Today, we're diving into the history of how we even began to scientifically study the human mind. And it all starts with one huge question. Seriously, how does it work? I mean, how do you recognize a friend's face, or remember your first pet, or even just decide what you're going to have for lunch? It seems simple on the surface, but this question has stumped the greatest thinkers for millennia. You know, for the longest time, the mind was basically science's final frontier. We were out there mapping the cosmos and splitting the atom, but the one thing we couldn't seem to get a handle on was the universe right between our own ears. It was a total black box. And that actually brings us to a pretty weird quirk in the history of science. You ever noticed how the study of the mind, psychology, seems to have gotten a really late start compared to everything else? I mean, just look at this timeline. Modern physics really gets its act together back in the 1600s. Then you've got modern chemistry popping up in the 1700s, but a real scientific approach to the mind, that doesn't even get off the ground until the 1800s. We're talking a gap of hundreds of years. So what gives? Why the massive delay? Why did it take so long for science to finally turn that powerful lens of inquiry inward? Well, it really boils down to this. You can't see a thought. You can't weigh a memory. You can't measure focus with a ruler. The whole problem was that mental processes are completely invisible. And if you can't observe or measure something, how in the world are you supposed to study it scientifically? It was a huge roadblock. So the very first pioneers in this field had to get clever. They figured, okay, if we want to study what's going on inside the mind, maybe the most logical first step is to just look. And they called this method introspection. The idea is actually pretty straightforward. You just pay really close attention to your own thoughts and feelings as they happen, and then you report on what you observe. It's like being your own private investigator, but for your consciousness. All right, let's try a little experiment right now. Super simple. Just look at the screen. Quick, what animal is this? Okay, easy peasy, right? It's a cat. You knew that instantly. Your brain just did it, probably before you even finished hearing my question. But now for the tricky part. How did you know it was a cat? I mean, really think about it. Try to retrace the exact mental steps. Did you see the whiskers first? The pointy ears? The tail? Did a specific memory of a cat pop up? See, that's a much tougher question to answer. And that feeling you have right now, that process of pausing, looking inward, and trying to reconstruct your own thought process, that's introspection in a nutshell. You were literally trying to observe your own mind in action. So back in the late 1800s, this brand new idea of introspection was championed by two absolute giants in the field. But here's the thing. They took this exact same idea and ran with it in two completely different directions. So let's meet our two pioneers. Over here, you've got Wilhelm Wundt. Let's call him the analyst. His whole approach was super systematic, super rigorous. His goal? Nothing less than creating a periodic table of the mind. And then on the other side, you've got William James, the observer. He was much more holistic, more big picture, aiming to just observe what he famously called the stream of consciousness. Okay, so let's dig into Wundt first. This guy had a huge ambition. He was literally inspired by chemistry's periodic table, and he thought, hey, maybe I can do that for the mind. He was convinced that all of our complex thoughts and feelings were just combinations of basic mental elements. So he developed a super strict method called analytic introspection, where he trained observers to break down their experiences into the most basic components possible. William James, though, totally different vibe. His main research subject was, well, it was himself. His method wasn't nearly as rigid, it was more philosophical, relying on his own incredibly sharp insights. He wasn't looking for little building blocks. For him, the mind was a single, flowing, holistic thing. And this is where James gave us that amazing metaphor. He said consciousness isn't like a chain made of separate links. No, it's like a river, a stream of consciousness that just flows. This idea really captures his whole philosophy, and it's the complete opposite of Wundt's search for mental atoms. So you've got these two brilliant thinkers, both trying to crack the code of the mind using the best tool they have. But as it turns out, that tool, introspection, had a massive, fatal flaw. Here's the killer problem. Science absolutely depends on objective, verifiable data. But introspection is, by its very definition, subjective. It's my thoughts, my feelings. I can tell you what I'm thinking, but you have no way to check if I'm right. And that's exactly what happened. Even Wundt's super-trained observers would listen to the same musical chord and give completely different reports on their experience. The results were all over the place.
And because of this, Wundt's epic projects, well, it failed. He never found his periodic table of the mind. He couldn't. The data was just too subjective, too messy. It never added up to a single clear picture.
So you might be thinking, okay, so this whole first attempt was just a big waste of time, right? A scientific dead end? But that's not it at all, not even close. See, introspection was an absolutely critical first step. In a way, its failure was its greatest success. It showed everybody just how incredibly difficult this problem was. It proved, beyond a doubt, that if you wanted a true science of the mind, you were going to need a whole new toolkit, a much more objective one. And that leaves us with the big, tantalizing question that would shape the next century of psychology. If looking inward wasn't the answer, where on earth could science look next? What could you possibly study if you couldn't study the mind itself?